Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this exciting session of LitFestX. We are joined by probably one of India's most prominent and most loved personalities on television, on theatre, acting, on food. Please welcome Kunal Vijayakar, who's an Indian film actor, director, television personality. He's also very well known for his show, The Foodie, which ran for several years on Times Now, and he co-hosts India's best-known English satire show, The Week That Wasn't, with Cyrus Brocha on CNN IBN, and also now The Other Week That Wasn't on Comedy Central. Uh, Kunal is also the author of a very well put together book, uh, which is really an eclectic spread of some of the most iconic and sometimes forgotten and beloved food that India has to offer. Kunal, welcome so much to LitFestX.
Kumar, thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. And at the outset, only let me say that this idea of doing an online literature festival is spectacularly good. While I am going to miss being invited to come and fly down to a venue and stay in a five-star hotel and be fed by you, it is extremely enjoyable to actually sit in your own home and be able to communicate with all these people over here. But the next time, please invite me. I'd like to come and stay in a five-star hotel somewhere as a guest or to a literary festival. Okay.
Certainly, we'll do that. We could do a post-festival meetup with our authors.
What a good idea.
Kunal, you have possibly covered world cuisine, Indian cuisine, with a level of granularity that very few people in India have. Whether it is looking at the street food across the country, or sort of grandma's delicacies across the country, or even looking at foreign cuisine in India, nobody's covered it the way you have. And our topic for today is to look at Indian food abroad. I mean, clearly, one of the ways where countries and economies have been able to export their culture to the world and take that culture global has been through food. So, just as Chinese food is pretty much available everywhere, and so is Mexican to a large context, we are seeing some amount of Indian food abroad. But, give us your sort of perspective of, where do you see it, and, what has been the sort of growth and, uptick in the consumption of Indian food.
Okay, let me just start off by saying this, that Indian food at the moment is doing quite well. Okay, in the last few years, say in the last decade, the popularity of Indian food in Western culture in foreign countries is growing. It's still not as huge as Chinese food is, and I don't know why, considering that we have diaspora, Indian diaspora, and living in every part of the world. I mean, there is not a single part of the world where you can go and not meet an Indian, So the opportunity for Indian food to spread all over the world is immense. Having said that, I think there is a very interesting movement that is happening now all over the world, and especially in the United Kingdom and in most parts of Northern America. Is Indian food is getting out of this pure takeaway culture and is becoming into an experience culture. There was a lot of Indian takeaway. You see it on sitcoms when you watch American television serials. You see the characters saying, "Today I'm going to order Indian," and that kind of thing. And then there are jokes about Indian food and how hot it is and how spicy it is. But it's getting out of just being what is it called? Takeaway food, and is now becoming quite popular, especially in places which have a long history of association with India, like the United Kingdom. So it's taking off. It's taking off in a very, very interesting way at the moment. I'll tell you something. When we decided to do this session, I did a bit of reading up because eventually I'm not the greatest historian on earth, but apparently an Indian migrant opened Britain's first curry house over 200 years ago, which is an interesting bit of information. It was called Hindustan Coffee House, and so you could smoke a hookah pipe and sort of recline on bamboo cane sofas, and you could eat some spicy mutton and vegetable dishes, And the name of the guy was Dean Muhammad, and he opened 200 years ago. An Indian migrant opened the first curry house in the UK. So that's interesting, to know.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something very interesting, that how what started out as just takeaway culture is now going up the value chain as an experience.
Absolutely.
And so you travel a lot, especially to UK and US, and one sees a lot of Indian restaurants.
Yeah.
Now, personally, I've seen some of them where they claim to be Indian restaurants, but they are mostly Bangladeshi or Pakistani.
Yeah. True. You know, yeah. You ask me what you're asking me.
So do you now see more of the, let's say, authentic Indian? Just as in India we used to have Mumbaiya Chinese or
Yeah.
Indianized Chinese for so many years, and
Right.
of late now we've seen few really high-end gourmet restaurants where you serve authentic Chinese.
True.
Are you seeing that now across the world with Indian food as well?
Yes, yeah, you see that. See this Bangladeshi culture, Bangladeshi restaurant owned and masquerading under Indian cuisine uh, has been going on for a long while. Okay, there was, I think, in 1971, in during the time when Bangladesh was going through its worst struggle to gain their own independence and all that. There was a lot of there are a lot of Bangladeshis that, traveled to the West and settled over there as refugees, trying to escape oppression in their own in East Bengal, as it's called. And like most cultures, where you ghettoize in areas of a new city, uh, there is a big need to eat your own home food, and they started these little restaurants cooking for themselves, originally cooking for themselves, and then started becoming slightly popular. If you also realize, the 70s, even in Western culture, was a slightly more open-minded liberal society, society which was willing to accept foreign, the whole hippie movement and the 60s, 70s. There was India fascination. There was a fascination for the Guru culture in India, and so a lot of the Firangs were willing to try out Indian food, and then Bangladeshis making food went beyond trying to feed themselves, but also sort of became popular. Mind you, most of the food was restricted to North Indian cuisine. So they were doing tandooris and tikkas and or what they call just a curry, which is actually a curry which is mildly spiced with something called curry powder. Now, anybody in India, cooking in India, who does not know what curry powder is, because there is nothing like curry powder. I mean, every community family has their own garam masala, and they have their own mix of spices that they use, but nobody has a curry powder. And according to me, a curry has to have coconut in it. Otherwise, it's not a curry. Then it's a salan, or it's a masala gravy, or whatever you want to call it. So they did a lot of these curries with cashew paste or nut paste, and just mild Madras curry powder kind of thingy. So much so that there's a whole cuisine in Birmingham called the Balti cuisine, Balti, Balti as in bucket, okay, which
Right.
which has been created in Birmingham. It doesn't come from India. It just uses Indian spices, and it's been conceived by the Indians who lived in Birmingham. But you don't get those flavors in our country anywhere. But it's hugely popular in places like Birmingham and all. And I think I sort of got waylaid in the exact question that you asked me and went into something else. But so what is
No,
it that you asked me, Kumar?
So no, no, we were talking about the authentic Indian cuisine that is now possibly coming around in the West. Yeah.
Yes. So there was these Bangladeshi guys in the UK especially, and they were doing North Indian food uh, and a little bit of Muslim Pakistani food, which is great. I mean, the niharis and the halim and all that kind of stuff. But what is happening now is that, and it's something that started about 2 decades ago. Uh, Two people started this. Okay, there was Camellia Punjabi, okay, who was the bigwig of the Taj Mahal Hotel, who moved to the UK and took over a restaurant called Veeraswamy, and there was another restaurant that she started, which was, I forget the name now. Yeah. They started. She's I've forgotten now. But Veeraswamy was one of the big restaurants that she bought over. And Chutney Mary, of course. Chutney Mary and Veeraswamy were the restaurants that they started, where they started doing regional Indian food. So, food from South India, food from Maharashtra, food from Bengal, food from other parts of Punjab, uh, and they were five-star restaurants that were uh, fancy fine dine Indian restaurants. And that trend now has become huge because the last year's restaurant, the best restaurant in the UK was a restaurant called Dishu, which is an Indian restaurant. So an Indian restaurant today to be judged as the best restaurant in the United Kingdom is a long way where Indian food has gone.
Right. You know, when we are talking about the early beginnings, and you mentioned that the first migrant opened an Indian food joint about 200 years ago. Are you seeing a maturity coming in terms of consumption, in terms of people now trying to differentiate abroad between the different Indian cuisines? I mean, clearly, we spoke about it earlier. It was just North Indian or Mughlai.
True, true, true. Let me just go back in time. This is very interesting, okay? Queen Victoria, and we were ruled by the Brits, like everybody knows. Queen Victoria was actually a queen who had never visited India. Till the day she died, she never visited India. But she had this fascination for the country. So much so that she had an Indian chef in her kitchen, and Indian food of some sort. Now, I do not know what was cooked in that kitchen, but Indian food of some sort with masalas in it was cooked on a daily basis. So she actually made Indian food fashionable in the UK. Yeah, and before that, British soldiers and British people who were posted in India and would return to India, return to England, would take back their masalas from here. In fact, say in the 1700s, uh, the masalas that were commonly used in food were coriander seeds, salt, peppercorns, and lemon juice. This is things that no Western cuisine used these ingredients. Like dhania and pepper. Okay. Then as we got into the 19th century, you see accounts of British eating curry for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Because by then they had already gotten ginger in, they'd got turmeric in, they'd got cumin in, they'd got fenugreek in, and it was being added to British food, and it was becoming more and more popular. Then, according to me, in the last sort of 50, 70 years, there was a downtrend with these Bangladeshi restaurants opening, which sort of actually bastardized the cuisine from being an interesting mix of spices to being very North Indian, tandoori based, uh, one basic curry kind of, one salad kind of thing. And then starting with Camellia Punjabi and a book written by Madhur Jaffrey many, many years ago, they started introducing regional Indian flavors into their food. And today, restaurants like, say, Vinit Bhatia's restaurant called Zyka in the UK is doing spectacular food. Quilon, which is in the Taj, with chef Sriram Ailur, who started the fantastic Karavali in Bangalore, then moved to the Taj in London and opened Quilon, which is a spectacularly good South Indian restaurant. The owners of Trishna, they've opened a Trishna there, and now it's Michelin starred.
Wow.
They got a Michelin star. The restaurant called Gymkhana opened, which is doing fantastic Indian food. There's a friend of mine who's opened 3 restaurants, and he's doing. His name is Manoj Vasaikar, and he does dishes from my community. Say I'm from a small community of Maharashtrians called Pathare Prabhu. So we've got a thing called Bhanaula, which is like a cabbage cake. And it's a bit like your dhokla, but it's baked instead of steamed. But it's cabbage, and he does that over there. He does things with prawns, he does things with mutton, which are spectacularly good and are from regional cuisines. They're absolutely non-North Indian food. Um, there is a young lady in Thornbury called Romy Gill, who was a housewife with a passion for cooking. Started off doing pickles and masalas and doing on small cookery classes. She's opened a nice little restaurant in the middle of Thornbury village and now is the toast of Bristol. She's won every award over there. And she makes asli gharka khana, Indian style, and from all parts of the country, not only North Indian food, which is just it's such a, how do you say, it's so heartwarming when you're traveling abroad. Look, I'll be honest with you, okay? We are Indians, we have an Indian palate. Yes, we like French food and Mediterranean food, this way, XYZ. When you're traveling abroad, you start off on the first day, you eat this restaurant, that restaurant, second day, third day, fourth day. By the fifth day, you want some spice in your mouth, okay? Then you say, okay, but I'm in a foreign country. I can't go and eat in an Indian restaurant, yaar. So then you go and eat a Thai meal or a Malaysian meal where you've got a little bit of spice. It's a little more coconut, so it's a little closer to home. And then on the 8th or 9th day, I start wanting my dal, chawal, chicken, mutton, masala, something, okay? Then what used to happen in the old days is that you go to an Indian restaurant where you got such terrible food that you'd say, bus, never again. But now, I was in London last month. I was there for 6 days. And for some reason, I had, 6 days is like 12 meals. Out of the 12 meals, I had about 8 Indian meals. I don't know why. I had 8 Indian meals and each meal was better than the other, which is fantastic. It would never happen 10 years ago. You could not do that in any foreign country. Let's move from say from the UK to the United States. Okay, there is a restaurant in Washington DC called Rasika. Obama goes and eats there on a regular basis. There is a restaurant in Chicago called, I think, it's Woodlands. You know what used to be Nariman Point? Woodlands. I think in Bajaj Bhavan or something in Nariman Point. Woodlands was a South Indian Idli dosa joint. They've got one of those. In New York, you've got Junoon, which is Chef Vikas Khanna's restaurant. Again, caters to the President of America. So there's a lot of this happening abroad, and all of them are doing extremely good quality, robust, authentic, faithful Indian food, and people are paying big bucks and eating there. And they are all non-Indian clientele, which is fantastic. There is no better ambassador for this country than our food, is what I think.
True, true.
Oh, a
You
lot.
know, clearly, there has to be some sort of a strategy. I think, there's got to be some way where we can make it cool for, local foreigners to be going out and having a good Indian meal. So there was a time when it was considered cool to go out and have a gourmet Chinese meal or a gourmet Thai meal.
Yeah.
How do you think you know both chefs and marketeers, or maybe even the government of India or tourism or culture department, or somebody's got to take charge and say, can we make eating Indian out really cool, so that there's this explosion, like you said, of our culture being disseminated abroad in a far more in-depth manner.
Okay, now this is what I think. I may not be completely accurate, but this is what I think. Okay, cuisines take a little bit of time to become really popular. Dishes become popular faster than the cuisines. So even if you take Italian food in a foreign country, the pizza became famous first, more than the whole of Italian cuisine. Or spaghetti became famous first. Similarly, we've got something that apparently, and I heard, is become hugely popular, is pav bhaji. It's
Right.
apparently the latest desi food demand in, say, a city like New York. Yeah, they're calling it sloppy pav, but which is nothing but pav bhaji. Uh, Dosas have become extremely hip and happening to have. They're like crispy pancakes or whatever they call them. Crispy golden crepes, which is
Wow.
dosas. And then so I'm saying, if you and governments cannot do it. This has to be done by the people. People who are passionate about food have to do it. And I think slowly it's happening. And I think it will happen through this, like the chicken tikka or the tandoori chicken, which is a dish, be, became popular. Similarly, the dosa is on its way to becoming like a really happening thing at the moment in America. The pav bhaji is there, and if you watch shows like MasterChef Australia, and if you watch My Kitchen Rules or whatever that show is called, you see there are Indian contestants in it, in those shows, and they're producing Indian food on those shows, which the whole world is watching now. We are pretty much becoming the flavor of the decade at the moment in terms of our culture. Uh,
Right.
I'm guessing that Narendra Modi traveling around the world and banquets being thrown and all that kind of stuff is probably in all probability popularizing Indian food as well, albeit it may be just Gujarati food, but it's popular. Indian food is getting popular.
True, true. There's also been a lot of foreign influences now, where you've got chefs who either studied and trained abroad coming back to India, or Indian chefs going abroad, where they're bringing about this whole concept of fusion Indian food. What's been your experience there? Are you seeing some really good stuff happening on that front?
uh, okay, this is a touchy subject, okay, because I am not the greatest fan of fusion food of any kind.
Okay.
I'm still an old-fashioned, traditional food. Although life is full of change, and one has to keep changing. So I guess there is Vineet Bhatia is probably the closest that comes to experimenting with Indian food and making it more, uh, how do you say, more fine dine. Yeah, we in India, we are used to, four people go for a meal, you order two dishes and you share. Order rotis, chawal, daba ke khao. Whereas most Western food is all pre-plated in a plate. You've got, each one gets his own thing. So what are you eating? Oh, you're eating chicken. I think I'll have the steak and you have that. So nobody shares. Like say the tapas Spanish is full of small eats which you share. So Indian food is also the trend that I see now is that, okay, let me put it this way: the trend of fusion came and sort of went away. It came around the time when this molecular gastronomy and all was happening, and there
Hmm.
were a couple of places that did it really well, which includes Vineet's restaurant in London, Vineet Bhatia's Rasoi. Indian accent in Delhi was probably the finest example of this kind of fusion food, which we did not even see abroad. We saw it here in Delhi. Uh, but I think it's going back slowly to the real taste of Indian food. You plate it internationally. You may play around with textures of the food and the form of the food, but you never play around with the taste of the food. Because a dal makhani needs to taste like a dal makhani and cannot taste like anything else. You may break it down into different sort of forms and textures, but you cannot compromise with the integrity of the taste of that dish, which is what they're doing now. So you're getting internationally plated food. It looks spectacular on the plate when it comes, like fine dine. The restaurants are also equipped with the same sort of cutlery and crockery that you'd see in any fine dine restaurants. You've got your lovely crystal glasses for your wine, 3 goblets, forks, spoons, everything. Uh, but you're getting well presented Indian food, which we in India don't do. We present with salad डालते हैं ऊपर, cucumber, tomato काट के थोड़ा डालेंगे ऊपर, that kind of thing. But now they're doing it very interestingly.
Right. No, some very good insights there, Kunal. We are getting some questions on Twitter, so we probably have time for 1 or 2 questions. I'm going to show it to you on your screen, and then you can respond.
Okay, respond verbally, no? Or do I have to tweet?
No, you can respond verbally.
Okay.
So this is Alok saying, do you see Indian cuisine as a mix of health, healing properties, and we are also keeping taste in the list?
This is a fantastic question, actually. Something that I have to confess, my knowledge is not very good. But I have a friend who's been studying really hard. She's been doing her own research on the healing properties of Indian food and Indian ingredients. I don't think there is a single restaurant anywhere, not to forget abroad, even in India, that is doing food with healing qualities. We know at our most basic, like ingredients like turmeric are hugely antiseptic. Sandalwood is cooling, and we've got all this treasure house of ingredients that the Rishi Munis have done research on, which have all kind of healing qualities. Tulsi, for example, but I don't think there is a single restaurant that is doing it purely from that aspect, and it is sad because I think there is a possibility. There is an opportunity there right now, which one, you need the knowledge, and two, you need to put it in practice. But it's a great idea.
True. Well, thank you so much, Kunal. It's been a really fun and interesting session, with you learning about where's Indian food growing abroad. And, I'm just happy that I've done this session pre-lunch because you've suddenly whet my appetite.
I'm also famished, Kumar, famished. I wish I had food that I could sort of, show you all like this, but I don't, unfortunately.
Well, thank you so much, Kunal, and great to have you with us on LitFestX. And wish your book all the success, and we hope to see you, doing some of your great work as you always do.
Yes, and listen, Kumar and everybody at LitFestX, congratulations on this wonderful effort that you guys have done. I only wish you strength from here onwards, strength to go on every year, and we'll see you online.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Adios.